The deep ocean, one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Crippling cold, lethal pressure, a deadly but irresistible world.
If you make a mistake, they'll kill you, just like that.
To understand our planet, we must explore the oceans that cover almost 3/4 of its surface. Down in the dark depths lie rich minerals, incredible oases of life, and scientific mysteries.
We're kind of on the cutting edge of ignorance about what we know about the ocean.
We are on a journey to uncover the riddles and resources that lie beneath the waves. Welcome to the deep. Above us all stretches the majesty of the skies, a universe of distant stars and planets, brave new worlds that may one day be closer to home. But space is not the only frontier. A dozen men have walked on the moon, but only 2 have ever been here. The bottom of an oceanic trench. The deepest place on Earth. Now we follow 2 intrepid ocean pioneers as they embark on an epic journey. A journey through each of the ocean's layers, down to its deepest point. During the long dive down, we will venture out into each zone, revealing its mysteries and the technology that allows scientists to study them. Below the waves, colonies of biologists study the beautiful coral reefs. Diving engineers create new technology that may let us tap the ocean's immense mineral wealth. And bizarre life forms force scientists to question the very nature of life itself.
I don't think most people realize that the Earth is alive. It's a living organism, and most of it is beneath the sea. Most of its secrets are beneath the sea.
We start our journey far above the sea's surface, looking down on the oceans below. If we pull the plug on the oceans, we can see each of the distinct layers that make up the deep's alien landscape. A shallow ledge surrounds the land. This shelf rarely exceeds a few hundred feet in depth. The continental shelf is an underwater extension of the landmass. But on average, 40 miles from land, the seafloor plummets thousands of feet into the vast abyssal plains. These plains average 12,000 feet deep. They dominate the planet, covering around half the ocean floor. A chain of mountains runs for 40,000 miles across them, 4 times longer than the Himalayas, Andes, and Rockies combined. Our final destination lies just beyond these peaks. The deepest of all the ocean's chasms, the Mariana Trench. The trench is 43 miles wide and nearly 7 miles deep. Large enough to swallow Mount Everest with ease. For Bob Ballard, the discoverer of the Titanic, the deep ocean is one of human exploration's greatest challenges.
Diving is dangerous. You're an air-breathing, land-loving, sun-loving creature that's in a totally different world, far more alien in many ways than going to Mars or going to the moon.
50 years ago, 2 men prepared to venture into this alien world. to travel where no human has been before or since. January 23, 1960. The U.S. Navy readies an odd-looking submarine off the Pacific island of Guam, the Trieste, an extraordinary vehicle that engineers hope will withstand the extreme conditions in one of the most remote, inhospitable places on Earth, the Mariana Trench. Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh has been preparing for the record-breaking dive for 9 months.
It was just another day at the office. I don't mean to be precious, but it wasn't that complicated, and we'd done so many dives, I pretty well knew everything about the thing and how it worked. It was just going to be a long day.
Trieste is a bulky, strange-looking craft known as a bathyscaphe. It's more like an airship than a conventional submarine. A 58-foot-long tank dominates the craft. Slung beneath is a tiny spherical cabin where Don Walsh and his fellow crew member, Jacques Piccard, will be squeezed for the entire journey.
The interior of the sphere of the cabin was indeed small, and the actual room that the two of us had is about the same size as a large household refrigerator. So next time you're in fishing out a can of beer, think about two guys trying to work in there.
The main tank above the tiny cabin is full of 28,000 gallons of gasoline. But it's this gasoline, less dense than seawater, that allows the Trieste to float. The dive can only begin when the crew floods the ballast tanks with water. This makes Trieste heavier, and the bathyscaphe begins to sink. She's on her way to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Locked in their cabin, Walsh and Piccard can only hope the Trieste will survive the ocean's extremes. From here on in, mistakes are likely to be fatal.
Most of my closest calls with death occurred in bathyscaphes, so I know how dangerous they are, and I know how dangerous their dive was, very much so.
Our dive to the bottom of the trench begins with the smallest step. Into the shallow skin of water above the continental shelf. Trieste's porthole, we look out into a sunlit realm called the photic zone. Here, sunlight warms the water and allows plants to produce energy through photosynthesis, spawning an enormous food chain. Most marine life exists in this thin layer of ocean.
When you start a dive, you're up in the sunlit layers. It's a beautiful blue, sharks and other fish are swimming by.
60 feet beneath the surface, we're already a long way from our native habitat, dry land. Scuba technology allows us to enter this magical world, but only briefly. The amount of air in our tanks limits the time we can spend here. And our return to the surface is fraught with danger. The effects of changing water pressure can be deadly. To truly understand the wonders of these luminous waters, we need more than brief glimpses. We need to stay beneath the waves. And now, researchers have found a way to do just that. 60 feet beneath the surface, around 3.5 miles off Florida's Key Largo, lies the Aquarius Station. Owned by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, it's the only underwater laboratory in the world. This pressurized steel tank can accommodate 6 biologists for up to 10 days. Here they can study the coral reefs of this sunlit zone. The reefs are home to colonies of tiny organisms and a treasury of life. Biology professor Mark Hay from the Georgia Institute of Technology is conducting research at Aquarius.
It's sort of like a school bus that's sunk on the bottom. It's about that size. It's full of air, and there's a hole in the bottom, and you go and come through that hole.
This open hole is a direct link between the ocean and Aquarius's interior. It allows scientists to come and go as they please. Pressurized air inside the underwater station stops water flooding in, allowing scientists to